Hello everybody, welcome to our bonus podcast for this week where we will be doing a listener questions segment.
Ooh.
I know, it's been months. It seems to months go by and there's no listener question segments, but it just felt like a listener question-y week kind of week.
How are you so cool, Michael? How do you do your accents?
What?
That's my listener question.
Shut up. We have got, as always, 2 questions sent to us by our lovely listeners to just kind of mull over and flap our gums about over the next hour or so. Thank you, as always, for sending in your listener questions. And we've still got loads in the bank, so hopefully we'll be able to catch up with some of them very, very soon. And our first listener question, I'm going to just dive straight into it this week, is from our lovely listener, Rachel, who says, and I love this because it's very timely, if you were to put on your own Coronation Street convention, what would it be like? And money is no object.
Right, unlimited budget.
Unlimited budget for Coronation Street convention, because somebody needs to do one, really, don't they?
And also, everyone wants to do this. Nobody's been put off.
What do you mean?
Nobody's like, I'm not doing it because I heard it went wrong the other day.
This is official Coronation Street convention.
They've hired us.
They've enlisted us to put together.
And they went, we don't have any expectations on you. We don't care what you do. We've got so much money. We don't know what this really is. This is like... This is kind of a money laundering scheme, so just do what you want.
Yes, exactly. Now, I do like the sound of this. We're more spoilt for choice than ever in terms of Coronation Street fan things at the moment. The exhibition, the tour is, the best it's ever been. The experience, exactly. Last year we had the audience with Coronation Street events that we could get tickets for, and obviously, the big elephant in the room at the moment is the Fan Fusion convention last weekend that was somewhat Coronation Street related because Vicky Meyer was due to attend, but for circumstances beyond anybody's control or knowledge, it seems at the moment at the time of recording, didn't quite go to plan. We're not involved.
We're not involved. Not getting involved.
But you've also got things like some of the actors will do their... Talks, especially if you're in Canada, you usually get a couple of Corrie stars every year go over to you. We've had the odd one here or there. But there's not been a proper, what we would consider a fan convention for Coronation Street. The last thing that I remember was when we did the Corrie Fest, and that was back in 2013, I believe, which was just at a pub in Manchester. And now we're about, 20 to 30 attendees, being generous. And there was nothing particularly about modern Coronation Street there. It was very 70s themed, if I remember rightly. But they did have, they had a writer, they had a couple of the old actors turn up there to do talks. They put in a little skit. There was some screening of lost material. So that's kind of the basis on what we're judging it on. Now, whether or not Coronation Street fans are plentiful enough to fill a... convention hall or what have you, I don't know. But let's, for the sake of this question, say yes, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Everybody wants to come.
Yeah.
Tickets are negligible in price.
I'm paying people to come to mine if money's no object.
That's a very good point. We just want something that's going to look good in the papers, don't we?
Yeah, maybe some oil sheik is super into Corrie.
Yeah, maybe.
And he's like, I just want you to put on the best show. And I know you guys can do it.
Because they have them for other things, don't they? I mean, sci-fi conventions tend to be the most commonly... Well, they're ones that turn up on my Facebook feed. That went wrong as well, didn't it, the other day? What went wrong?
Well, we're not going to get into it.
Oh, I don't know about that. But convention-wise, we have been to ones in, not Coronation Street, in the past. We've worked at them for Gemma's old work and sold magazines at stalls.
It's fun, wasn't it?
It's so much hard work.
I did not enjoy.
So
stressful.
We know what they're like. So, do you want to, before we even get going with Coronation Street ideas here, Gemma, what would you say? How would you describe a fan convention? What sort of thing are we looking for? If somebody's saying, what's a fan convention?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to call it CobbleCon.
Nice.
And I think I'm just going to go to the bank with that.
Not Conversation Street Con.
No, because it sounds like we're conning people.
It does a bit.
It's like we trick you into listening to 4 hours of
Well, you did say it was
nonsense.
money laundering.
Right, so fan convention normally is a huge convention hall is where you go for it, like an events thing, like the XL Centre in London or wherever they do it in Manchester, which I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Would Co-op Arena have something like that?
Where did we go for the gladiators?
I don't remember.
But that hall is the kind of thing.
Yeah.
Arena, some kind of thing like that. I don't know though, because that's got seat arena. So that's actually an arena. You don't want that, do you? I don't care because this isn't really happening. But you have like series of like at the XL Centre. Let's say we're going to have it there for some reason, or we're going to move the XL Centre to Manchester because it's free. Everything's free. So if you were to do it there, you've got like a big central hall with like food stalls and stuff, and then inside there are giant halls. Like there's like 4. And that you can expand them, can't you? So you could go, right, we're going to do this hall is merch, this hall is
food,
whatever. So you would have expansion capabilities if you wanted to do that. And then everybody pays for your ticket, and you can either have, and it's usually over Friday, Saturday and Sunday, isn't it? And so you get cheap. The most value for money is doing all 3 days. Most people come on the Saturday, and then you go into a hall and there's loads of counterfeit goods, and you look at everything, and it's really expensive because they've had to pay money to come here and have a stall. And then you can have panels. So a show that you might be interested in has the actors doing a Q&A or talking about their latest project, and people can stand up and go, what makes you want to be in it? And then everyone's like, oh God, I don't want to hear that. And then
no, everybody does. Gemma, you don't particularly like the idea of going to panels, do you? But we're not. But
this isn't for me. This wouldn't be for me. So I don't care.
We're just the organiser.
I'm not going to make it for me because it would be everyone stays at home in their pajamas and it's virtual. You'd also have like screenings, yes, where you go and you watch a bit of the show, and you might have a cosplay competition.
Oh, yes, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. What else kind of stuff do you do?
Well, there's lots of lining up for autographs from people as well.
Autographs and photos, which seems to be the thing that people want celebrities to do.
Yes. So you're saying that I think we need to get this venue idea sorted, because you said about moving the XL Centre or just building something. But I don't know, is that something that we want, or do we want to have it, properly inside the studios or on the street? Like, can we hire out Coronation Street studios? Can we get them to just push the sets to one side maybe in the studios and clear that out? Or, we have been behind the scenes, and there are some spaces in between some of the sets. We could have little stalls there. We could have bits inside the sets themselves. I think that would be a lot more exciting for some people than going to a random hall.
There'll be vandalism.
There may well be, things, so certain sets not looking the same as they did afterwards. But I don't think that we need to think about things like that. I'm going to say that all our guests are going to be on their best behaviour.
The issue you've got here is that the Media City is like, I'm sure there are spaces that you could hire there, and you've got the Lowry. Mm-hmm. But Media City, the set is kind of by itself over the water. So if you wanted to, there's lots of free spaces. Like, there's a giant bit down the bottom of one of the buildings that you could put like merchandise stalls in there. But then you'd have people walking backwards and forwards over the bridge.
Yeah, we don't want that necessarily.
What if you put up what they called big tents?
Yeah, big gazebo-y type thing.
Like, in that bit in front of where the Coronation Street sign is, you just have a massive tent.
Whereabouts? Are you talking around the back of the set?
Yeah.
I think we want something bigger than that. Maybe we could take over the car park.
I haven't finished.
Okay.
That would be part of it. Then you'd be like, right, Pier and War Museum. This is all boring, isn't it? Nobody's interested in this war stuff. Can we get rid of all these, really sad exhibitions and like signs about things? It's bumming us out. And we'll clear out that, and then we'll put stuff in there.
Could do.
Because downstairs also, there's a massive bit downstairs where the cafe is and the gift shop. And you can clear that out as well and go, right, we're not buying any Gig for Victory postcards. We're going to be selling Nina Sharple stuff.
But I had the other idea of maybe getting a big hall, and then, because money is no object here, like recreating the sets, just doing some like mock-up. So it's not actually the sets.
Exactly the same, because I'm sorry to say that the Coronation Street experience, Duckworth's house, is a big waste of space.
Right. Okay.
The Roy's Rolls is pretty good actually, but I'm not. It's really difficult because, I mean, what about some decommissioned sets? What about some sets that they've just taken down? Like, you using Adam Barlow's set, can we transport it? Well, you know what I mean? Like, I bet you there's loads of sets they've just got tucked up, and it's like, you're not going to use that for 6 months, are you? Just let me have that and put it out. Like...
They would have to do something, you know, we couldn't have a Corrie fan convention without there being a Rovers or mock-up Rovers, though, could there?
Yeah, mock-up Rovers, and here's an idea. I can't remember what it's called, the Museum of Childhood History or something like that in London. I can't remember, or the Museum of the Home, I can't remember what it's called. But here's an idea to have, say, Elsie Tanner's house recreated through the years.
Oh, I like that.
So you go and you look, this is what the set looked like. This is our recreation of the set in 1960, and then here we are.
I quite like the idea of having, you know, walk Coronation Street through time, and you could walk through. It could either be like certain sets that they've mocked up, like here's walking in the Rovers in the 60s, and they give you special glasses that make everything black and white. I don't know.
Punchy.
Here's the 70s Rovers. Here's the 90s. Here's then. I suppose Rovers hasn't changed quite enough for it. But I do. We both enjoy these streets through time bits that they do in museums, don't they? They've got one at
I love it.
The basin, haven't they, near where Richard went into the canal.
That is like a cultural history.
Yeah. So I wouldn't mind that, but it's just the space for it.
It gives the veneer of respectability, then, doesn't it? So people don't feel like, you know, they're just turning up to buy some tat and get an autograph.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing history.
So
cultural enrichment.
So are we kind of sticking with hiring out the Imperial War Museum next to Coronation Street, but also having a few things? Could there be a big... Are you kind of thinking of a big, like, tunnel that goes from the back gates of Coronation Street to the Imperial War Museum, like as a connective... You can go back and forth between the two of them. And
then there's like a bridge that we build so people can walk over the top of it and so they don't get in without paying a ticket.
Yeah.
Why do you want it to be near the set?
Well, I just think that people would like the idea of having a Coronation Street convention in the land of Coronation Street,
but
because I think all
you'll get is people going, it's a shame we can't go in there.
But maybe we could.
No, I'm not letting people in there.
You're not going to let people in the actual set. So this isn't going to be... But what about even on the street? Because I would have thought that if we were doing it there, we could be doing it in conjunction with the Coronation Street experience and having tours going on as part of the...
No, this is nonsense.
Why?
It's too chaotic.
Well, that's what a convention should be.
No, it isn't. Well, okay, how many people's going to this?
Thousands.
120,000?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of people to get around the set. Do you see what I'm saying? How many people do you think they have?
Okay, well, I think that there's just enough people going that we could keep some... I just think it would be a shame if we were going to have it...
You're making us have it there. I'm saying don't even have it there.
If we're going to have it... Well, okay, well...
Right, 10...
You just
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15... So what's that, 6?
What are you talking about?
You're not getting that many people through. You're getting maybe 200, 300 people through the tour a day.
Well,
that's 30 people on a tour every hour.
Okay. Well, maybe we don't then. Maybe
120,000 people want to go to this.
Okay, maybe we just need to have it right away then. But I still think
right away. What do you mean?
No, right away from the set.
Oh, okay.
Because I think you're right.
I can't do it tomorrow. I'm busy.
If it was there and the temptation would be there, maybe it would be a bit too much and there'd be too much disappointment. So
what about that stadium where people play with the football stuff? Can you hire that out? Can you hire it out for something else?
Yeah, why not?
Can you? I don't know.
Oh, probably. Yeah, there are concerts and stuff.
They get mad about people walking on the grass.
I do like the idea of having some form of mock-up sets that you can walk in, though.
Sometimes
even if it's not the actual street itself.
At hotels, don't they? Like inside a hotel, because there was a convention.
Yeah.
That I've been to that was just in the hotel function rooms. Now that's more like 500 people.
And although hotels are nice, I think to have them as
limiting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit limiting, and I think it'll feel a bit tacky. You're not going to be able to
build stuff.
You can't build recreation sets there. So let's just have a big hall somewhere then with. I'd like there to be a whole mock-up street, if it's just certain sets that you can walk in between. Then yeah, why not? But I want to feel that my guests to this convention are getting a proper immersive experience. You know. give them a pint of Newton and Ridley's on arrival, that kind of thing. We need to be all in here.
Well, the thing is about a recreation of the street. My idea for having like historical sets is easier to accept an imitation, isn't it? Because nobody thinks that the 1960s Elsie Tanner front room set is somewhere. And nobody really, like, if I said, here you go, nobody's going, oh no, the coal scuttle's in the wrong place. Are they?
Yeah, but I think we would need to be careful about leaning too heavily into like classic and vintage Coronation Street, because there's only so much interest.
Ken Barlow's house, and so I would have the Rovers and Ken Barlow's house.
Right. And just
one from the 60s and one from now.
Okay. So what are our guests going to be able to do? I mean, presumably we are going to have a load of the cast members there doing the autographs and stuff. I think with cost being no object, and we know that the cast do like to sign up for the Star Tours, I think that they might be up to being persuaded to come and join this. And I think that the cast is so big, let's just say invite as many as want to come, because the thing with queuing up for autographs and conventions is, you get these conventions that have got 6, 7, 8 celebrity guests and you're just in a line for ages. So I say get as many guests as possible and then there's no queue. Yeah?
Yeah, Yeah.
What's up
with
that?
It's just not my thing. I don't understand why you would queue up for a signature. It's just not me.
But lots of people do. You need to think with your business hat on.
I know, but it's one of them things that people do that it's totally fine. Like,
I have
I'm
no interest personally in collecting Coronation Street autographs.
But like when I try to put myself in the shoes of somebody who would want this, I'm like, I don't know why I'm here.
You get your autograph and your photo can be done at the same time. Now I do like to get the odd photo here and there.
But why don't they do it that way? There must be. Is it just to like fill people's day?
Well, I think some places do. I think that the convention that we used to go to, you could.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but we're not going to have a problem with the length of queues because we're going to have 80 odd cast members there.
I'm not having queues because
it's just going to be a mill of people, and it
sounds awful.
You'd have to be careful though, because there'd be certain areas of the hall where you're going to get an awful lot of people queuing up for, I don't know, Vicky Myers at the moment, and not so many people queuing up for I won't say. But I'm sure we could all end that sentence ourselves.
You've got your own personal people you wouldn't queue for. What about if you just make it like a wedding reception or something, or like a wedding receiving line, or like when the Queen comes. And so like you're the Queen and all of the celebrities are the peasants.
Well, they've all had practice of that from when the Queen actually did go to the set.
But you like instead of queuing now I'm in the queue for Samuel Longchamp, but now I'm going to get in the queue for Andy Wyman. No, they all sit behind their desk and you walk past them all, and you get an autograph and a photo with all of them, and then you go, and then we've all done it.
Okay.
Well, and you have to have... There's no negotiation, right? Because everyone gets a photo with everybody, and I don't care if you like them or not.
Okay.
Because that way, none of them feel sad.
Yeah, I don't think we want that,
I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, my line's not long enough.
Yeah, okay. Well, would we also be having classic...
And I'm just... The reason I said all this stuff about, I don't understand why you'd want an autograph, is to excuse my ignorance as to whether this is a good idea or not, because I don't know. I don't know, would that actually make it easier, faster, more efficient, or is there some other reason why these things
I don't know.
Take ages?
Would we have like past cast members as well? Would they be mixed up with the rest of them?
Yeah.
Or would we have a little vintage classic Corrie corner as part of it?
We're mixing them up.
With Kevin Kennedy and,
we're not putting them in their own
Sean
corner.
Wilson sitting on the corner together.
They're all mixed in.
See, I don't think that would work so well, because it's fair enough that some people would not have any interest in going to see, God, I don't know, Chris Quinton sitting around getting an autograph with him.
Well, that's their problem.
I know. You need to think with your business head
free.
on, Gemma.
I'm paying you £50 to come to this. You queue up, do what I say.
You tell me something else that you would like to put on that you think is going to keep our punters happy at the Coronation Street Fan Convention then.
I'm going to get Jenny McAlpine to make a hot pot again.
Yeah.
She did that on the TV when she had her restaurant.
She did do that, didn't she?
She made a hot pot. But I'm also going to have...
You'd be well into the food corner.
Yeah, this is why I'm not interested in autographs. I'm doing the food section, okay?
Corrie themed?
Yeah, because I'm going to have speed dial,
They could have their little van again, couldn't they?
Yeah, and just make sure the back is, cleared out. No access to the back of that van because I don't want people crawling in there.
Yeah,
recreating
Kate and Rana, no.
And then Rovers, so have hot pot, and then sandwiches, and then and a Roy's rolls. So have all of those themed places, and that covers almost every type of food that you would want to eat at a convention.
I can't see us not doing that. I think that's a really easy win, having branded or themed seating areas that are based on eateries in Coronation Street. There's enough of them.
That I think the experience really falls down on, to be honest with you. The Coronation Street experience is that the cafe is not themed in the slightest.
No, it's very generic, isn't it?
There are restrictions that I don't fully understand, so you can't get mad about it. But we've been given access to everything we want to do by Siri and McLeod and this oil shake, so shake or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's fine. They don't mind at all. In fact, this guy, he just bought ITV.
Fine, it doesn't matter. We said money's no object. Why it's no object, it doesn't matter for me. All right, okay. So what else are we getting our guests to do other than queue in single file to get autographs with absolutely every single cast member?
Yeah, that's going to take all day.
Well, we got 3 days to fill here, haven't we?
Day 1, queue up.
Get all your autographs there. See, photos wise, I'd also. I could imagine there like being a photo booth or something. You get the photo booths at weddings and you have various props that you can pose with. So I think that could go down nicely.
Hang on. Like, do you remember when we were kids, if you went to a theme park, there would always be, come and get your photo taken as a Wild West family. And you'd be like, why? But I'd love to. So you could like dress up as, there can be, like a set, and you can recreate a scene or whatever.
Well, I think that they could maybe have a little underworld background, and you could all put on your tabards and sit behind the sewing machines there, put something on there. I'd like the idea of them bringing down the, in the prop store, they've got the cabinet of murder weapons. Yeah. So I say, stage your own Corrie murder recreation.
Yeah.
So you're whacking somebody with Tracy's statue or one of the many crowbars or Katie's wrench, that kind of thing. I think that would work well.
I've also, this technology that we have access to, which is really handy, is one I said for ages they should do this for Star Wars. You put yourself in a scene.
Or what, like green screen, volume wall kind of thing?
Yeah, so you just act in, and then they insert you into a scene.
At that.
And yeah, you're great at acting.
Give me a couple of mugs to walk through Roy's with.
I can't think of
talent scouts will be phoning me the next day.
Like you could tell Richard Hillman that he is Norman Bates with the briefcase.
Yeah, I think people would like that.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Speaking of Richard Hillman, another idea that's just popped onto my head, because we were talking about these the other day, simulator, right? So we could have a simulator of driving through the streets of Weatherfield and then into the canal.
Yeah, and
with the You and Me song playing.
Yeah, because we get the rights to that back.
Yes,
I don't know.
I don't know whether there's many other Coronation Street simulations that could go in a simulator, but or maybe driving through the park with a flaming burger van, maybe, or just on the tram itself as it careens off the tracks and into the corner shop, chasing down Molly Dobbs.
Yeah, Gemma and Chesney on the
cable car. Yeah. With a sort of a planted audience member giving birth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna have a live performance. So I'm gonna get whoever I forgot who did the one who dies. They're gonna come and do You and Me song. We're also gonna get Eric Spear back from the dead to
with his orchestra.
With the orchestra to do the theme tune. We're gonna get Massive Attack for Teardrop for that time that Sarah Louise nearly got molested.
Yeah. Okay. We could have.
I'm sure Lisa and Carla's wedding song will be available.
I know that we said that budget is no issue, but we can't be too silly with this.
Andy Wyman's going to do his arsehole song.
But I was thinking that do we have some kind of Corrie karaoke thing? And Andy Wyman would, you'd have to push him off the stage probably to get on. You know what he's like at these affairs. I think that getting Glenda there, getting Jodie Prenger to host a karaoke contest with only Coronation Street themed songs on the soundtrack allowed, I think that wouldn't do too badly with that.
What about recreating Stars in Their Eyes? That time that all the Corrie people came and did. We could get a Vicky Festival back to do to be Bjork.
Oh yeah, she did do Bjork, didn't she?
Jane Danson.
Jane Danson being Victoria Beckham.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah. Bring that back.
Yeah, why not? I think
why not?
I think some in the evening, some sort of musical themed entertainment would probably be good. And the fact that Jodie Prenger wouldn't need very much convincing to host.
She didn't want to do the karaoke when we were doing the karaoke.
She did. She
said, "I'm not doing it."
She would have done it.
I think
Can we have a quiz as well? I mean, it seems silly to have a convention of fans and not have a quiz.
I don't know how that would work.
Why?
What about the Corrie musical?
What about it?
Songs from that.
Yeah, that would all be allowed in the karaoke. You got to have a quiz.
How do you do a quiz at a convention?
Well, the same way you just with lots and lots of
Everyone
teams.
Shouts it out.
No, you got lots of tables laid out.
You got 120,000 people come to this.
Yeah, it's fine. Lots of teams, all very big teams. Or is it something? See, I was kind of mulling over another idea of there being like an accompanying app on your phone. I don't know how well this kind of thing would work.
Yes,
so we've got this app that, as well as being your portal to entering your quiz answers, and that solves that problem immediately. I'm thinking that I was thinking of there being like some kind of live interactive episode thing going on over the course of the weekend. Like, we're in the midst of a whodunit murder mystery at the moment on Coronation Street, or who's going to do it. But let's say that there's some Friday evening, you get there and you're all welcomed into the hall, and then you downloaded your app, and a notification comes up saying there's been a body found, the body of oh gosh, who's a dispensable character?
Don't say anything. Peanut the dog.
One of the quads has been found, and who's been murdered?
We don't know which one it is because they all look the same.
Well, that's the first mystery. And then over the course of the weekend, you get like little notifications pop up that have got text updates from Weatherfield Police Department, or you've got little video clips that the cast have filmed saying, "Oh, I'm sure that I saw so-and-so going into the cabin at the time that this happened." And then over the course of the weekend, you're putting together the mystery. And then maybe on Sunday night, like as a grand finale, all of the main players in this mystery on the main stage live act out the grand. Yeah, see, do you like that? Out the big grand reveal, and when we've kind of said, "Oh, I think it's going to be this person. I think this is who's done it." And I think that would be something little. I don't know whether conventions do this or not, but something that would be a little bit unique, and we could play along with as the weekend goes on. Because this is the thing, when we did go to that convention, me and you did think, "Oh, how do people spend the whole weekend there?" Well, once you've done a little tour of the convention hall, that's it. And I know that our convention is going to be excellent value for money, but we don't want people drifting away, so keep them hooked in with an ongoing story with a grand reveal on the Sunday night.
A lot of it is just social, isn't it? Because you meet people that you that love what you love, and then you talk to them and have fun with them.
Yeah.
And do stuff like that. That's why people spend weekends there.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that we're going to be having panels going on here, aren't we?
Yeah.
During it. So, anyone particular, like any themes, any topics, any people that you think would make for a good panel at our convention?
I'm sure a lot of people would go to a panel if you could ask Ian McLeod some questions.
Oh, you think grilling Ian McLeod is a fantastic idea?
I don't think I'd recommend it to him.
It'd have to be an AMA, wouldn't it? You couldn't duck out of anything.
How many millions of pounds would it cost us to get him to do this?
It doesn't matter. He'd do it for the love of the programme.
Like, I would be so scared to be on the other end of a Q&A of a bunch of disgruntled fans who, like, the answer to most questions is just because that's what we decided to do.
Because that's what the research says.
Like, it's not like we just make up stuff to annoy you.
Maybe we could, if we've got 120,000 fans there, that's a pretty decent sample. So he could, instead of using YouGov or whatever,
just do his research there.
Do the research. Maybe as the weekend goes on, he's just there milling along the crowd, saying, "So, what do you think of Nina?
Yeah,
blonde or brown hair?
Say,
or black hair? Sorry, or
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think of the police station? Too much or not enough?"
No, you guys. I'm going to do the opposite of what you say because you're obsessive, so it's irrelevant.
I think that having cast interviews would be obviously very important. You wouldn't be able to get everyone up there throughout the weekend, but
we're getting Sharon Marshall doing all of it, obviously.
Oh yeah, we're going to get Sharon Marshall. Yeah. I mean, what duties are we doing? Are we going to have a Conversation Street live that's recorded there? Why not?
No, I don't fancy that.
You just you're not selling it, Gemma. To the listeners of this podcast, they'll be going, why wouldn't you do a live podcast? People keep saying to us
they want us to do a convention, or like we should do a convention, and it becomes more and more apparent to me that it's not a good idea.
Well, we could have.
I've got no experience in running events. I don't know why people think.
Well,
I would be good at it.
You would be. As part of the unlimited budget, we've also got training from the world's greatest convention experts.
How can you do a live podcast recording in witness protection?
What?
Which is what I'd need.
That'd be so
we could have like tonight playing the role of Gemma in the Conversation Street podcast, Sarah Lancashire. She's great. She can be anybody.
I'd do one. Don't worry, listeners. I'll be on the stage. Maybe I could be the interviewer.
Everyone
because
has to
people
turn
say
around.
they like the Conversation Street interviews.
Why not?
We'll do that then.
You can have two stages. You can have Sharon Marshall on one and you on the other one.
I think that having cast members, having production people, I do think that interviewing the writers would be quite interesting as well, because the writers, they don't get very much time in front of the camera. We don't really get to hear much about what they say. I know they don't want it, but some of them
but
might.
I don't care.
Some of them might do it for.
Some of them will
if we gave them a little bit extra.
£3 million.
Because I think that to lots of Coronation Street fans, like the vast majority of Coronation Street fans, the writers are just these names that appear at the beginning of the credits, and somebody who you can just throw your criticisms at the programme at. People are always saying, oh, the writers don't know what they're doing. Why the writers done this? And I think that having some panels where the writers show, hey, we are human, and this is our process that we go through.
Yeah, these would be questions submitted in advance if we had any audience participation.
We could do that.
Not having people going, why did you make...
I think that showing them as real people, that you could go, oh, okay, I get the process
trouble,
now.
People don't like that.
It would help all 120,000 of us to understand the thing how it works better for them.
People want to throw the criticism at nameless people.
Yeah, exactly, and this will give a face to them.
Yeah,
and maybe help people make their constructive criticism a little bit more constructive.
Don't always need that.
No, I know, but okay, what else are we having? What else are we having? Shops. Yes, we got to have some merch. So tell me about this.
People I've made Swala.
Okay, so we're allowing fan created merch to go on sale. Yeah, there, right?
Now we've bought ITV. It's fine. I'm the rights holder for Coronation Street, so I don't have a problem with it.
So
I'm taking 10% of everything you sell anyway.
Oh, I mean, presumably we're also going to be selling the actual official merchandise here as well.
Yep.
Get your street signs and your books and your mugs and your lanyards and all that jazz.
I'm going to sell a Coronation Street photo album that you can Photoshop your face into.
Right.
Some people love that.
Keep going.
Gonna sell props.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna have a charity auction for props that have been in the show.
I think that a charity auction would work well. Because we did that when we went to the Ryan Prescott, Mikey North event, didn't we, a couple of years ago, and they had it's mostly autographs, wasn't it? But
we bought something.
Yeah, we bought a Doris Speed signed picture, didn't we? That's up in the attic at the moment.
Yeah, because that's what I think of autographs.
Because we don't really like autographs.
I don't even know why.
But the Coronation Street props department is groaning with stuff. And now I think that there's some classic, valuable items there that I still think that they might be able to part with, and I know they like to get ITV Reloved can have a stand there. They can have a merch stand. I mean, maybe they're the people that run the auction.
Yeah,
because there is so much stuff. I mean, we went upstairs in was it the Platt's house or was it the Swain's house? I can't remember. And there were just racks of clothing items there, some of which were labelled for ITV Reloved. So there's not a small amount of Corrie memorabilia from the past that they could part with. So I think that having some kind of auction would definitely be a good idea. Charity, or maybe it's not a charity auction. Maybe it's the auction for helping to fund this extravaganza that we're putting on here.
I don't need money. I tell you what I do like that's got signatures on it, autographs, is signed scripts. I love them.
Oh yeah, people would love a signed
that have been in
script.
the script, sign it. I like that.
They'd go down well.
I give that a thumbs up.
What about like replica props? Because you're not going to actually be able to sell Vin Diesel the Weasel there, but if they could knock up a few cheap Vins.
I bet you that would cost so much money. I bet that would be thousands of pounds because that person made it. It's not like bad taxidermy they found in a charity shop. It's literally was constructed
I know,
by an artist.
Okay. Maybe Vin Diesel's not the best idea, but if there was something that they could quickly cobble to, how about cobbles?
Deirdre's glasses.
Yeah. Could they sell some cobbles? Do you reckon?
Yeah. Well,
Hook him up from the street beforehand. I don't know.
Well, I've got my merch idea that we haven't never done.
What's that again?
Well, I'll give it away now if I say it, won't I?
Okay then. Well, now will be the time.
No, now's not the time.
Fine. I think that they could make an awful lot of money for the merch section because Corrie fans do like to drop their cash.
Like to buy a bunch of crap, don't we? That's what we do.
I think
whenever we go up to the experience, we always go to the shop and buy a load of crap.
What's new, we'll have that. Thank you very much. I think that for one thing I would say for our convention is we would waive the little rule that's stopping them from putting characters' faces on merchandise and say, anything goes here. If you want to get a T-shirt with Jodie, then on it, then why not?
Yeah, we're selling those. We've got loads of them for some reason.
Pair of socks with the Bailey Boys on.
Yeah, Bailey Boys socks.
Yeah.
I'm having a whole range called the Bailey Boys, and it's just their face on anything.
Well, we would want to make some merchandise that would actually sell. Don't forget.
No, well, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell their face on a podcasting microphone.
Okay, well there we go. What else could we do?
Look, very supportive group of people they are. They'd encourage you as you're talking.
Could they? I would like. This was my other idea that I thought of. One of them. Meet the Corrie pets.
That would be smelly.
Well, that's fine. It's just for
not in the same bit as the food.
No, a far away corner. Go and meet.
It's like a petting zoo.
Yeah, like a petting zoo, but for David the dog and for who else have they got? There's not really many Corrie pets at the moment.
We could have the babies there as well. Like you can pat the baby on the head. Go, that's cute.
I wouldn't be so fussed with that. Or Simon Gregson could bring Rover along because Rover's still going, and Tiny the horse. Presumably not. Still okay.
Yeah. I've not heard any news otherwise.
And then you could just pretend, like, get any old Great Dane and say, look, here's Schmeichel.
No one's going to argue.
Do you think people would
We could have a competition. Find Schmeichel, the lookalike of Schmeichel, and have a load of people bring their dogs.
Oh, that could be another stage thing. We could have Corrie lookalikes. Because surely among our 120,000 guests that are coming along to this, someone's going to bear a passing resemblance to Maggie Driscoll, aren't they?
Is this like our equivalent of a cosplay competition?
Yeah, but exactly. So you think, with the anime conventions that we went to, you had the cosplay was, your giant swords and your ridiculously sci-fi, Coronation Street costumes for the most part. They mostly just wear normal clothes, can't you? I mean, I suppose you could have. Yeah, I suppose you have Dolly Parton contests, don't you? And you could have, here's a Bet Lynch contest. Show us your your best bet. Maybe that could be the name of it. What's your best bet? Or who else? Or you got your Hildas. Is there anybody at the moment that's really, really iconically in their... Roy, maybe? Bring along your anorak and your bag. But I think that there's enough Corrie characters that if you were to say... Coronation Street fancy dress contest, you'd get a decent number of people that would apply for that. You could have some creative ideas as well.
And then you could have a cosplay ball at the end where we all dance around.
Yeah, you could have 3 people going around as flying ducks in duck costumes maybe, or some people just dressed as the cobbles. I don't know.
But getting meta now.
Or doesn't have to just be by costume. We could have this is where they just wouldn't allow me to take part in this.
Right.
Your best Coronation Street impersonation.
No, you're banned.
Yes, I just would
Cause
just
widespread
naturally
offence.
win, wouldn't I? So go up there and you're doing your Fred Elliott or your Blanche or your... Yeah, plenty. I think that would be a good... Getting the audience involved with things. Yeah?
Yeah. Great, do what you want.
You sound like you're running out of enthusiasm for this, Gemma. We've not even started putting it together yet.
Really? I thought we'd done now.
No, as in we've just at the ideas stage.
No, I'm gonna... Part of this process of being unlimited money is somebody else does it.
Well,
I'm not doing any of this.
We're the people that have been hired to do it,
I'm
Gemma.
tired
So
already.
I'm sorry, we haven't got any choice. We've got to be doing stuff here. Well,
I want some money for a new computer then.
Fine, go on, Bennett.
Okay.
You're such a Grinch, Gemma, sometimes, aren't you? What a misery guts.
I'm not feeling this at all.
People are saying, yeah, Coronation Street convention, and you, the host of the Coronation Street podcast, the biggest Coronation Street podcast out there, getting, I don't really fancy that, actually.
I'm not, no.
I don't want to be...
I'm sorry.
Well, you can come up with ideas for me to do then, can't you?
I'm not hospitable, am I?
No, you're not at all. Okay, how about a treasure hunt? Yeah?
Yeah, what we do.
Treasure hunt on the mock-up set that we're going to have.
No touching.
Or what?
No touching the set.
Well, it's fine. You just have to spot things. Or like a stamp rally.
We could have two Rovers return sets and you have to spot the difference in real life. How cool would that be? And they're in different places and no photos allowed.
Why not?
Because it's easy then, isn't it? You've got to run to one end of the hall and look at it and then run to the other end of the hall and look at that one.
Okay.
Is that what people enjoy?
Yeah.
Is that what you want?
Well...
Isn't that what people like to do at conventions? How much would that be? It can't be that expensive because it's like buy one get one free on sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have I killed your enthusiasm?
Well, you've just been a bit of a grump about it.
Well, what else do you want to talk to?
No, I think we've come up with the main ideas so far. I do like my idea of as the weekend goes on, some kind of concurrent story unfolding with a final performance on the Sunday evening would be good.
Didn't they
do autographs, photographs? Yeah, obviously.
Didn't they do something? Did you hear about the debacle they had at Disney where they did this on a Star Wars retreat and they had it was a murder mystery weekend or something, but it was absolute farce and everyone hated it.
No.
Yeah, it went completely... Is it Jenny Nicholson did a 4-hour video about how badly it went? Okay,
I've got another idea. Escape room, right? So you're trapped in Phelan's basement or Becky's flat or just like Becky's the Rovers.
Flat? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Carla was. Or just the Rovers cellar and you have to get your way... Everyone loves an escape room.
How about... we do a real life Coronation Street escape room where you are in the writer's room and you're locked in there and Ian McLeod's outside and you have to come up with something interesting and he's like going, oh, I don't think that sounds like a good idea. I don't like that. How do you like it now, huh? How do you like to be on the other side of it? Yeah, it's called Ian's Revenge. and we're the first ones in there. And I think we're going to die in there.
I think we could come up with something to appease him.
Can I just say how much I love the idea of an escape room, a Coronation Street themed escape room?
Oh, thank you.
And I wonder, how much could you get away with? Let's just forget about the convention. How much could you get away with before ITV would sue you? You could call it the Cobble Conundrum and have this public's familiar.
Because you do get properly themed sponsored escape rooms, don't you? We got a Wallace and Gromit one in town at the moment, I think.
Do we?
Well, I've seen a sign for it.
Well, we've also got a knockoff Harry Potter one.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. You got knockoff ones that... didn't that Stranger Things that we did before? I don't think that was Netflix approved, was it?
I doubt they know about it.
So I don't know. Maybe that could be an idea. But for the convention, maybe it's... See, if only it was a real pub, having an Escape the Rovers would be amazing. Rebuild the whole Rovers and you get started off right in the Rovers cellar and you have to solve these clues to be able to... And locking at the Rovers, it writes itself. And you do solve these clues to find the padlock key hidden somewhere inside a barrel, I don't know. And you come up into the bar area, but then the front doors of the Rovers are closed. They've had this before, haven't they?
What?
Characters being trapped in the Rovers overnight. Like, has Jack been there? Or Stan? Stan was trapped in the cellar, wasn't he, once with Albert Tatlock?
Didn't Jack? Yeah.
But
I don't
yeah,
know.
so it'll be like that. So then you can't get out the front door of the Rovers, and there's this mega padlock on the front there. So then you have to go into the back room, but maybe even to get there, you have to do these clues in the bar area to get into the back.
I'd love that.
And then upstairs.
I would love that so
I
much.
mean, let's can this whole convention and just put
do
all
that.
efforts into making a Coronation
rooms.
Street lock-in Coronation Street escape room.
And then like, oh no, to get out of this, you have to enter the date that where the county was formed, which is, Michael?
Who knows?
1888.
Was that when it was?
Yes,
that when it was? Oh, well done. Well, I don't want to throw away the whole convention just for that idea, but I think that'd be a very strong part of it.
I can't see it being a good addition to a convention, because you are blocking off a very expensive part of your thing for an hour for 4 people.
Yeah, maybe that can be something you have to buy your extra tickets beforehand, because this is how they work, isn't it? The conventions, you buy you buy your tickets just to get in, or maybe they just say come in, it's free, any Coronation Street fans or whatever. But you do have to pay for. Are you going to be on the conga line of autograph signers, or are you going to be in the lock-in? Are you going to get to go on stage and do a duet with Jodie Prenger or Andy Wymant?
So it's free. And then I force you to stand in a queue where you have to get the autograph of 80 people at £20 each.
Yeah, that's
by
how
the end of it,
that's how we make our money back.
I now own your house.
There we go. Well, there's all our ideas, everybody. We're not, in the convention business, but there may be some listeners that are. So if you fancy stealing any of this or and putting it together for the fans this summer. Go for it.
But can I say that whoever, I don't know who it was that organised the Lasso Gallery Corrie Fest
of 2013,
but it was brilliant actually for what it was. It was so well organised and it had everything you'd want, and it was really good value because we had a hot pot, didn't we? We sat in the pub. There was a quiz, there was a screening, there was a Q&A, there was a live performance, and I think the person who ended up going to play. What's the name of that character? Penny or, Poppy or something? The one that was the naughty one who was trying to drink in Speed Dial. What was her name?
Oh.
Wasn't she in the show? Somebody who went on to play.
I thought it was Kimberly Hart Simpson played somebody.
She played.
Did she play Beth?
I can't remember. So some people were in it who then went on to being Corrie, or at least one person.
At least one person. But yeah, well, there we go. Are we going to have some sort of on-stage live Dram Coronation Street?
We could have them do a table read.
Oh yeah, table read, that would be good.
Yeah.
Upcoming episode maybe to try and entice people in.
Everyone has to sign an NDA.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we could screen like the next day's episode.
Why not?
We could have a lock-in.
Giant cinema. We would have to have like a cinema room, wouldn't we? That showed classic episodes or
you have
undiscovered or long thought lost archive footage of Coronation Street.
You have a Corrie lock-in, but it's that if you watch Monday's episode on Sunday night, but we don't let you out until 22 minutes past 7.
Yes, you can't.
So you can't
Spoil it for anybody. There we go. I think that will do, Gemma. Your time being locked into this conversation about a convention that you have no intention because you hate that kind of thing. You would go. We would have to. It'd make a great bonus episode.
I'm just being grumpy. I'm being what's the word? Contrary.
I know you are. Well,
I've got to bring balance to the show.
Oh, no, you don't. You big sourpuss. Right, okay, let's do our next question. Gemma, over to you to read this one out. What are we talking about next?
Lisa says, what do you think makes a good issues storyline? What stories from the past do you think have been the best or most well done? Are issue storylines actually helpful? This is a very good question.
Well, it is a good question.
Series of questions.
As we know, Coronation Street fans, every single Coronation Street fan out there loves an issues-based storyline.
I do as well. I get my teeth right into it.
Or maybe not. So, do they actually help? Are they any good? Which ones are the good ones? I think we've got quite a lot that we could cover here. What to you? What would you say in issues? What would you mean by issues-based storylines?
An issues-based storyline is one you get into and you realise halfway through you're not supposed to be excited by the drama, and like you can't revel in people's misery anymore because it's an issues-based storyline. So you have to be serious about it, and you can't go, "Oh my god, how exciting!"
Yeah, it's got to be
like,
how tragic.
That's really sad.
Maybe something where you think, I've learned a lesson here.
Yeah, I didn't know that this would be such a big problem that we faced in current times.
And of course, before you switch on the episode, there will be that notification at the beginning saying that it may contain distressing scenes. But literally every single episode has those now.
And it's got a charity partner that they had to...
who they worked with.
Somebody had to go and speak to the actor and go, this is serious.
It does make you, like, what's the difference between an issues-based story and one that's just, like, serious? For example, I'm thinking of, like, the Mel storyline at the moment that's just kicking off. Is this an issues-based story about stalking? Or is it just a story about a stalker? And it felt like the Daisy and Justin story a few years ago. They kind of were selling that as more of a, we're going to delve into the issue of online stalking.
Who are you talking about?
Daisy and Justin.
But it was also acid attacks because...
But it wasn't acid attack before it started, was it?
No, but they had Princess Anne, didn't they?
Yeah. That bit was no doubt an issue story, although it was one where the focus kind of moved away from that. And I think that's something that makes a bad issue story. One that they just try and squeeze every drop of drama out of, which sometimes loses sight of the main issue. Like, with Paul's MND storyline, you had, can't just have it about Paul and his MND and his showing us what daily life is like with somebody with this condition. You got to have his mum be sent to prison. Where do we draw the line between what is an issues story and what is just there for the drama?
Well,
because is it that they go on what?
We were just talking about charity partnerships, and then we were. Two big stories that have been on the show recently is Ben, Steve's brother, and the Will grooming storyline. And I think we had a good post on our Facebook group.
Yes, that was Kate
recently saying, I don't think that this Will and Meghan story this grooming story is an issue storyline because it's become very soapy. And I definitely agree with that. And the same I would say, do you think it's an issues-based storyline that Maggie could be, there'll be a different father for Ben?
No,
I don't think so either. But if you go onto itv.com/advice, Bernardo's is up here about the grooming storyline, and the Genetic Alliance UK is up here for the Ben and Maggie storyline.
Okay, so even those are getting... But I think the thing is, an issues-based story is feels like a term that's been created almost by the fans to describe a story that you feel like you're being preached at a little bit.
I don't think it's you. I think it's a bit of a pejorative term now.
It is.
I think I'm going to say our favourite poster girl for being a producer, Kate Oates, may be responsible for ushering in or, be the figurehead of the era that we're in now of an issues-based storyline.
I don't know.
Because she was the one with the Aidan story, which I think, even if you had your head in the sand about Coronation Street, do an issues-based storyline because you're not on the internet, you don't care about, etc., etc., nobody could ignore that this was something that felt different.
But I wouldn't say that there was nothing similar to that before the Aidan story.
No, I'd agree with you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, things exist before we know how to term them. But as soon as you name something, you create the ability to discuss it in a different way, right? So, feminism existed even when we were living in caves and the woman's like, why am I at home here scrubbing the rocks? But we didn't know what it was until we had a word for it. We couldn't talk about it properly. Having a word for it gives us some kind of way to formulate our opinions and beliefs on it. So Coronation Street, we went to the audience with, and Barbara Knox was talking about the issues-based storyline of Rita being abused.
You're right, she did actually.
By
Alan Bradley.
Nobody called it an issues-based storyline, and I never even thought of it that way. But she talked about having bags of letters from women who said, I left my partner, my husband, because of the story. It's always been telling really powerful stories, but I think it's the modern era of Coronation Street, and I don't care where you draw the line, I just reached for what I could think of. It's probably wrong, but you can draw a line somewhere and go, this is when it really felt as though the writers and the audience realised that there are soapy stories and there are issues stories. I think the difference is, a soapy story focuses on the interactions between characters and how conflict is generated and how people interact with one another based on anything. But an issues-based story is about the specific topic that's being discussed. Like, I would say that Toya's cancer story was not an issues-based story, even though they did do stuff and Georgia Taylor did some awareness raising of like symptoms and talk to people about different things. But it wasn't about her having cancer. It was about her and Nick growing closer and about that conflict with Leanne. Yeah. I'd say Ollie, that felt like an issues-based storyline.
Oh, Ollie, dead baby Ollie. Not dying child Ollie. Not Ollie Driscoll.
No, sorry. Yeah. Be a bit more sensitive. But yes, the sickness storyline with Ollie, that was an issues-based storyline because we learned it was about Leanne versus the problem, which is that the hospital wasn't going to, didn't have any resources to help her, and she was kind of desperately reaching for some kind of solution and there was none.
That's funny because I don't know whether I would have even considered that as an issues story. And I think for me, one of the big differentiators or the thing that allows an issues story to blend in is how well they do it, who the characters are that are involved versus how much does it feel like it's just been pasted on top of it. I'm not explaining myself very well. So we'd grown to, we've known Leanne for 30 odd years by the time this story happened, and Steve. So these are characters that were very believable in their roles, characters who we know and care about. And so when something tragic happens to them, it doesn't matter whether we're supposed to be being taught something about a particular condition or not. You can feel like you're right there with them. I think you even like with Debbie at the moment, that's an issues story, but to me it doesn't feel quite so much as one. It's the story of Debbie and what's going on with Debbie and this character that everybody loves and has grown to know and really care for over the past 5 or 6 years that she's been back in the show. But then you get your kind of rubbishy ones, like I'm gonna say like, as a recent example, the Asher storyline. Now we do love Asher, but when that story was thrown at us last summer and we had Asher's finding her work really difficult, let's spend half an episode showing a terrible day of her, and now that's kind of over, let's have her stick her in a hospital for a month and then she comes out and she's fine. They kind of half-assed it, but also we'd seen so little of Asher in the preceding years that we didn't really care enough for her to care for the story, and then the fact that it's trying to teach you something about all paramedics have got a really tough job, it feels a lot harder to grasp onto, But then I suppose you could say, the skin lightening storyline with Asher, we knew the character even less. And that, I feel, worked really, really well.
Yeah, you can't just say an issues-based story is one you didn't like because you felt preached at, although that's how it's used.
I think it is to do with how strongly you feel about the character often, or it can be.
Also, it feels sometimes like an issue-based storyline. You could define it as we're using the character of Leanne to tell a story about this particular childhood illness. We're using the character of Asher to talk about work, like depression at work or PTSD, or what how tough being a paramedic is. Feels like the character's being used in the service of telling a story, whereas it should be that characters always drive what the narrative is, from interactions with each other. And take the grooming storyline as an example. I think we're not, because it's evolved into conflict between different groups of people, that feels more soapy to me.
Well, especially because it's in the middle of this future flash forward, who's going to do it story.
Like,
it doesn't, you got characters saying, oh, that's terrible, she's taking advantage of him, blah, blah, but it's like, we know, they're not really delving into,
they're not going,
even with Will, they're not
happen?
having him sit down and have these deep, but maybe that's to come.
It will come eventually, but I think...
There's also not much that, I don't know, maybe I'm just being ignorant about it, but there's not much that they can teach us. Nobody's going to go, oh, so I never realised this. I thought it was fine for PE teachers and their children and their students, their 16-year-old students, to have relationships. But now I feel differently, Yeah,
I know what you mean. Like, it's like going, an affair story is just soap. But then if you had, say, he's cheating on her because she's got cancer and he's fed up with her going to treatment, it then becomes a story about how husbands very often, women in treatment get warned that their husband very well may leave them because they can't be bothered to stick around. Like, maybe it's to do with how much the story can project beyond the characters and how much people watching it can say, oh, that's like me.
I think that's what people are wanting. What
people?
That's what their higher ups in Coronation Street.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch
With
this.
taking my completely cynical hat off, which is just when it's on my head, is saying they're doing it for the awards, they're doing it for the soap magazine covers, and I do strongly believe that is a huge, huge part of it.
And that's what they should be doing.
They want to be
they're
getting the awards and their recognition, but there's got to be somebody on high in Coronation Street, and maybe it's Ian McLeod, maybe it's somebody that's even higher, saying this is what you need to be doing. It's Coronation Street's duty not just to entertain but to educate and inform. Laudable, but not necessarily what a lot of people are wanting.
But I've said this. I kind of feel like I go between two different points of view on it, because sometimes I feel incredibly cynical about it, and it feels to me like somebody, like you said, this nebulous higher up person has got a queasy feeling about soaps and doesn't like them and doesn't see the point of them, and can only justify it to themselves if they say it's raising social awareness for a variety of topics. Like, you have to justify it because it's so brain dead and pointless waste of people's time. You have to justify it by adding in some kind of worthy cause.
Yeah,
that's how
very
it feels
virtuous,
sometimes.
Isn't
like
it?
It doesn't
look
need.
At our halo.
Like we've done this and we've done that. But then the other side of me goes, it doesn't really matter why they're doing it, because when they do it well, it actually saves people's lives, and that's not even an exaggeration. That's like literally true.
Yeah, because part of the question was
real impact on people.
Yeah, part of the question was, does it make a difference? And there's plenty of evidence out there that it can make a difference. Now, just on a personal raising awareness point of view, I would say that I am more aware and less ignorant of various issues because of the stories that have been in Coronation Street. For example, I didn't know about anything about MND before Paul's story came along.
I had no idea.
I knew who Stephen Hawking was, and that was about as far as it went. So I know about it now. Does that make any difference? I don't know. In what way does educating yourself about anything make a difference? But then you get your hard figures that show that certain storylines do increase people's calls to the advice lines, like when Aidan had his suicide storyline, that sparked the busiest day for the Papyrus helpline. David's rape increased calls to male survivor by 1,700% apparently. Tyrone's abuse from Kirsty trebled calls to mankind. So it definitely makes a difference, although, I mean, obviously that difference is going to be fleeting. It's not like suddenly everybody's openly talking about it anymore, but it's important, I would say, for a soap to get the ball rolling in some ways, and you could still say, if it saved one person's life, then it's done a good job. But it doesn't mean you want it all the time. It's also
to do with like giving people the tools to talk about something that's difficult, or giving a a reason to raise a topic that you might not be able to talk about with your family. Like, I've seen so many people on Twitter saying, I came out to my family because of that Swala, or previously there have been plenty of stories about subjects that are very difficult to talk about that have like only been able, and also like domestic abuse and stuff. People were like, I didn't even understand what was happening to me until I saw it.
Yeah, the Jeff and Yasmin story really did help that. But I would even say that, you know, going back 20 odd years to the Charlie and Shelley story, and I would say that the Coronation Street issues-based era stretches probably to around about the millennium. I mean, I would have put Sarah Louise's teen pregnancy as an early Corrie issues story, although it didn't feel quite so whacking you around the head with it, because it wasn't the sort of story that came around quite so often as they do these days.
How much social responsibility do you have to the people who are living with the topic you're discussing to tell the story properly? Because they'll always say, you know, it's really important for us to get it right, yada yada yada. And with the best will in the world, they can't do everything perfectly. And I had huge criticisms for what they did with Toya's story. You know, going in the car the next day after having had a hysterectomy
that was Dee Dee, wasn't it?
Everybody, like, you've got to do it properly. If you're going to put it on yourself and nobody's told you to do it, you've literally put this mantle on yourself.
Yeah, didn't one of the kidney charities say that they did a really bad job with Carla's transplant operation last year? Yeah, they did. And they get consulted, and then they get, you know, well, we're not doing it like that because we're telling the story. It's like, at the end of the day, they are in service to viewing figures and ad revenue. That's it. It's not really about telling a story or doing, you know, or representing an issue. They've got to make money out of it, and the way they make money is selling adverts. And so it's irrelevant as to whether, to them, and I'm not what's the word? Pointing anyone out here or criticising them or blaming them, because if they do a bad job of it and they don't tell an interesting story, they can't tell a story about another issue next year because they won't be around. So they've got to chase it, even if you're going to take away like, oh, it's very capitalist and terrible. They need the ability to carry on telling stories in the future. If they want to help people by this, they have to do an entertaining job of it. Yeah.
But where does the responsibility stop? Where does it end? This is where it gets really blurry. Like, what's the end goal? It's always going to be make money.
Yeah, it is at the end of the day.
And unfortunately, we all live in this system. Make money
and get awards so that people are feeling good about Coronation Street.
No, it's not getting awards.
No, but if a soap is getting lots of awards, and the idea hopefully is then it will attract more viewers.
Yeah, exactly. Or
increase the money that you can ask the advertisers for. Maybe.
Hey boss, we're gonna sponsor Coronation Street for a year. Is all right. They've just won an award for. You know, they at the Soap Awards they won all the awards. Oh, they must be the best one. Let's sponsor them.
Yeah. Talking about other consequences of issues stories, and this was again one of the really earliest ones, the Hayley story right back from the beginning. It's interesting because I remember watching when her character came in and they were saying, oh, there's this first transsexual on British soap, etc.
That's what it was called. You've got to be careful how.
No, I know that's what it was. Yeah, that's what they called
at
it
the time that's what the terminology was. You wouldn't use that word.
I know.
I'm just being clear.
And that wasn't that. In a way, it was. Because I think when Brian Park came into the show, and I don't think he was around quite when that story launched, but he kind of kick-started the Let's Make Corrie Modern, because EastEnders had been doing a few more stories that people could really relate to and basing them on real life stuff that's in the papers. And this and I definitely believe that Hayley's story did help make a change for
let's be clear what we're talking about.
People.
Let's be clear what we're talking about, because Julie Hesmondhalgh has spoken very openly about her character of Hayley being introduced as a joke.
Yeah.
Nobody brought Hayley into Coronation Street to raise awareness of the issues faced by transgender people. It was because Julie Hesmondhalgh was like, I'm not playing this as a joke. These are real people.
It was supposed to be a disastrous date for Roy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like, look how funny it. Like, they did it with when Steve went on holiday. They did it since. They wouldn't do it now. But it was because of Julie Hesmondhalgh's very respectful and loving portrayal of Hayley. And just saying they raised issues about transgender people, not really true. It's to do with the Gender Recognition Act and being able to marry.
Which I do think came along partly because of Coronation Street and the nation's acceptance of Hayley. Because this was going back in the days when there were, over 10 million, 15 million odd people watching. 20 million, I don't remember.
Even now, lots of people do not know a single person who's transgender.
No.
But everybody knew who Hayley was. And so, because she was a sympathetic character on Coronation Street, when the issue was being raised about, should we have these gender recognition certificates? Should people be able to marry like Hayley, who is still, being registered as a man, therefore cannot marry Roy because gay marriage is illegal? What do we do about this problem? And lots of people were like, yeah, I care about this because I like Hayley and it's just not, she should be allowed to get married to Roy. And it was as simple as that for lots of people. And so we had the Gender Recognition Act in 2004, which was, following the stuff with the Roy and Hayley wedding and things in 1999.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think that without the character of Hayley, things would be a bit different.
Yeah, no, I do as well. And this is what I'd go back to saying that
but she wasn't
stories should be characters first and issues second. And because Hayley was such a beloved character, or became one, then you would lose sight of the fact that there were these little drip fed, like when they came back from Amsterdam and she struggled to get through the passport control, for example. It wasn't hitting you over the head with it.
It's telling a truthful story about real circumstances that people experience.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting. It's really hard to draw the line. And I do think that we do unfairly sometimes say issues based when we mean I feel like I'm being preached at, and I think this story is shoehorned in. I don't think it's always the same.
I think that's when stories can go wrong, is if you feel like you're being preached at, and sometimes when they're over so quickly, like when Joseph had his Lyme's disease a couple of years ago, Toya's story was dreadful because it was over and done with in 2-3 weeks. So, and it was very clearly hey, we're doing an issue here. Learn about go and get your ovaries checked out. I wasn't listening because it was that bit more relevant to me. Even I would say the Dee Dee's birthing story last year was over very, very quickly, and then you had the characters in the Rovers having these really slightly clunky conversations, weren't they? When it gets put into the dialogue, and that was what I remember about the Joseph storyline as well. You had Dr. Gaddis and somebody else at the hospital saying, "Oh, did you know that Lyme disease is something that you can pick up from dirty water?" Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, come on, you can do it a bit more subtly than that, or not at all.
In their defence, though, this would be how you would learn stuff. But when it's on television, it takes on a different aspect. It's unavoidable.
Yeah.
And it's I know in America we don't really do it. The thing is, I don't think people do, like in America they have this is a very special episode, and then they'd have like PSA about this and that. We never really did that over here.
No, I didn't know that they did that.
Like you wouldn't have here's a very special episode of The Bill. Don't do drugs.
But they do have more of their special episodes in the past, 12, 15 months of Coronation Street, don't they?
Yeah, but that,
The Paul's Perspective one was partly a great love story between Billy and Paul, but partly a way of saying Paul's mind is still completely normal and active while he's locked inside his body. And I thought that was a pretty effective way of doing it, because it was wrapped in a very strong relationship between these two characters. I didn't feel preached at there.
No, it's really hard. It's really hard. I mean, I think just being preached at and being clumsy is the biggest problem.
I think, and clumsy can sometimes mean it feels a little bit out of date as well.
It feels like somebody's reading it off a leaflet.
Like that, we always say back to the story with Paul and Lloyd in the Play the White Man story, when Paul says, "Oh, play the white man during a game of darts," and then it turns into a bit of a clunky casual racism storyline based on a phrase that I'd never heard anybody say, and it didn't feel like it was a phrase that anybody really knew of.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, some of these things you can say as a white person. Oh, I've never heard anyone say that. It's like, of course you wouldn't unless you hang around racists. But this Play the White Man was supposed to be something that people would say all the time, but we had never heard it said. But maybe it's regional. Like, I'm not going to say that I lived in a place where I'd never heard anything racist.
Yeah, but that was almost like, we want to do a story about casual racism, but we don't want to put anything really racist in the script,
really
because
offensive.
then it'll look bad. So we're going to put this phrase in that's maybe like tame, but tame and dated, but it can still really affect people who would be offended by it.
Yeah, I mean, we can't say whether we would. I mean, I don't find it offensive because I didn't hear it and it's not aimed at me, you know.
Yeah, but I
how many people have had that said to them?
But they wouldn't have had it said to them. It's overhearing other people saying it, isn't it? But
there's definitely lots more really direct things that could have been said by that character.
And I don't think Corrie's really ever done that well with stories related to racism. I feel it's sometimes like we'll do a few episodes on it, and usually, you know, at the moment, wheel out the Baileys to be involved in it, and then it kind of goes away, or it gets solved in a bit of a twee manner. Like how Dee Dee said, well, I'm going to educate people about black mothers in the maternity. And then there was the story with James and Michael being on the other end of casual racism when they were with the police, weren't they, or something?
That's not casual racism, that's institutional.
Sorry, that is institutional, but it was... It didn't feel like it was particularly solved, and that's a problem. That can be a problem. No, and that's a problem with issue stories. There's often no
payoff.
Yeah.
How do you get justice for the character? What are you achieving? If you're just raising it, that's the thing. If your story is, I'm going to let everybody know about this, that's rubbish. That's not going to work. It's going to come across preachy. It's going to be clunky, and it's not going to be narratively satisfying. Because at the end of it, we learned something exists, and that was it. What's the emotional payoff? What's the character? How did the character overcome it? And sometimes I do think it doesn't mean that they shouldn't do anything, shouldn't tackle them. But some of these issues are far greater than Coronation Street's ability to talk about.
Again, the homosexuality in football story. That was quite a big thing that was brought up, and it was certainly something that shocked me. I remember at the time, and hadn't really given any thought to.
Didn't know anything about it.
Didn't know anything about it at all. But then Coronation Street's solution to it was, let's have Tommy Orpington stand up for James in the locker room, and then it kind of goes away and it's not mentioned anymore.
Well, it's because he had a heart attack and he couldn't do football anymore. It's like, problem solved.
Yeah, exactly. But it can be really, really tough. And I think I can't remember which stories there are now, but there have been ones where they've purposefully not had a satisfying conclusion because, hey, that's real life. Even like the Mr. Thorne story, and this wasn't particularly a issues story, was it, when he was making fun of Peter's foie gras liver, and then he ended up getting away with it and moving to New York or whatever,
Florida.
Florida. I think you're right. That wasn't solved in the end, and that's a terrible example because it wasn't an issues story. But I'm sure there have been some where it's like there isn't a happy ending to it, and maybe that's for the best.
But it's a mature way to look at something. Like, yeah, you can't always solve everything. And sometimes just letting people know, look, we see you, we know what you're going through. That's enough to help people and raise awareness. But what's the point of it in terms of story? Because you're telling a story, you're providing entertainment to people. And so when you don't have a solution, that's why they've got to be really carefully crafted. And you can't just chuck things in and go, we're going to do a story to help everyone learn about... Like, what's Tyrone's story at the moment? He's in a wheelchair, but I can't remember.
Oh, that was a terribly done one recently.
What's the point?
That was a perfect example, and maybe that goes against what I was saying about it's got to be a character that we know and love, because I think people do know and love Tyrone, although he and Fizz had been off screen for they hadn't had a big story in a while. But him being put into a wheelchair, then doing this little interview with Alan Halsall and somebody else who was in a wheelchair saying, oh, it's really difficult day-to-day life. And that was the story, wasn't it? It was like, oh, Fizz is really stressed out because Tyrone's in a wheelchair. Oh, well. Anyway, and let's put them in a box again for months. And now suddenly he can walk a little bit. I don't
doubt anyone's sincere wish to create a story that helps people. I think it's really nice and laudable, and we should all be, but what are you doing with that story? And that interview, really earnest, everybody really cared.
Everybody definitely really
Everyone
cared
goes
about
into it really best of intentions, but what do you get at the end of it? A really confused bunch of people going, what's going on with Tyrone? What's the story here? What's the story that tells this issue. I don't know. They didn't really have one.
No, but
I think having an issue as a story isn't good enough.
No, but I think some of the better ones are ones that they get plenty of breathing time given to them. Again, the M&D storyline recently, apart from the odd, time where they went astray with Bernie, did in the end hit really well. So did the Jeff and Yasmin story, and that was given 1.5, 2 years to play out to make it feel more realistic. And that was a main story for quite a long time.
What do you think about Shona and David and Harper? Is that an issue story?
I would almost say no for that one, but that was couched in a very this is a loving couple going through this terrible thing. It was the characters that we really, really care about. And they didn't string it out too long. They didn't string it out longer than they needed it to, and they didn't.
What does an issue story do? It raises awareness and educates people. It provides people that are living with whatever's the issue. It provides them with
a sense that they're not alone.
Yes, a sense of like community or they're being seen or like validation. And it provides Coronation Street with something to say about their social responsibility. Mm. And what else does it do? Anything else?
Win awards.
It should tell a story.
And
I think that last one is the one that they sometimes forget, which sounds stupid and really rude to them, because I'm sure they don't. But what's the story of Tyrone being in a wheelchair?
Have a story. Asher,
I forgot even why he was in a wheelchair.
He was run over by Carl Webster.
Got run over by Carl, and
Asher
then he's in a wheelchair.
Did not tell a story.
Yeah.
Joseph's Lyme disease didn't
happens
tell
to
a
somebody.
story. It's just this happened and said,
life.
"Oh, isn't it hard?"
That's like real life. Like we don't need Coronation Street to tell that story.
Yeah. I mean, another good example of an issue storyline that worked well was the Seb Nina attack story, back 5 years or so ago, and that was based on a real life story, wasn't it? Sophie Lancaster.
Yeah.
And that even the fact that they had, after the attack, wasn't there like a week, 2 weeks or so where it was the only story that was in the show.
Yeah.
So they did give plenty of time for it to breathe. But also the good thing about that, and maybe this is also something that works in favour of other issue storylines, is that it infiltrates lots of other characters and it spreads. And if something, because like the Tyrone storyline felt very much, this was an issue that affected Tyrone, Fizz, Hope and Ruby, and that's about it. And the Asher storyline only affected Asher and Dev and Bernie. But the Nina storyline, everybody. Aiden's suicide story, and that was another one that worked brilliantly well. Because there wasn't a big lead up to it. There was just a bam, here you go. But also we got to see how the different characters reacted and how everyone reacted differently, and we weren't felt preached to, because it was saying, well, Beth feels like this, and Kate feels like that, and Johnny feels like that, and they're all valid and acceptable responses. Like, with Tyrone's story, we never even got him going, oh, I want to go to Speed Dial, how do I get there? And Ollie's oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it felt he never had a conversation with Izzy, did he? Or did he? I don't think he did have a conversation with Izzy. Or if there was, then maybe there was a little brief something. I don't remember now. But it feels as though it's kind of fine in it. It's Tyrone's story. It kind of was like, oh, let's have Carl run him over. Then that's going to cause a big hoo-ha at Debbie's wedding. Yeah. Oh, I suppose we could also throw in a little bit of issues or raising awareness stuff for it to fill a bit of screen time. It gets really cynical when you start. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also at the moment, we've got the Todd and Theo storyline running, haven't we? Which I'm feeling kind of mixed emotions about. Sure. And it can be difficult when Coronation Street does a story that can be very easily compared to a previous one. Like, people will look at this story and say, but how was it compared to Yasmin and Jeff? Oh, it wasn't as good at doing this bit. Or this bit it did a little bit different. I think that the portrayals that Gareth and... that's what is it? Jonathan James Cartwright. James Cartwright. Jonathan is Carl, isn't he? Have been put on a first class, and I enjoyed the behind closed doors episodes. But Yeah, I'm thinking of it saying it's not quite as good as Yasmin, and also, like, as we've discussed on the podcast, it's difficult. We don't think they've done quite a good enough job of explaining, making it really obvious, as obvious as it needs to be to the viewer, about why Todd can't just get out of there, because it feels like
it's all going on in his head, and we can't hear his thoughts.
Yeah, and that was the same problem that you had with the Sean homelessness storyline as well. Like, well, you could get out of this very easily, Sean, just by speaking to somebody.
People who are in the position that you are in the show don't have the resources that you've got. So why are you know, what story are you telling then?
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking about Tyrone in the wheelchair versus Jim McDonald in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone went, let's do a story to raise awareness about wheelchair users.
No, gosh, no.
But to me, it felt like a much more... obviously, I hold my hands up. I never watched any of the episodes. I'm only going on what Michael's told me and what I've seen from clips.
You've seen the scene with Maud.
But it feels to me as though it felt like a much more honest and real and interesting, you know, I use the word entertaining, and it sounds like a mean thing to say, but we're all watching it to entertain ourselves, than Tyrone's, because you have this story of this very strong physical man who is then... his options are reduced, and his ability to do what he wanted to do reduced by being in a wheelchair, and he's frustrated, and he takes it out on people, and he gets upset.
Gets upset with himself, tries to wheel himself in front of a car. He realises
how limiting it is to be in a wheelchair, and then somebody who is a wheelchair user talks to him and tells him something about her own experience, and it recontextualises it for him, and then eventually he leaves his wheelchair and finds out that the person who was helping him to rehabilitate is sleeping with his wife. That's tells a story. That's interesting. You're watching somebody's experience. You're learning about you stop and think to yourself, gosh, how would I feel if I suddenly had to use a wheelchair to get around? How different would my life be?
Yeah.
Gosh, I can see why he's upset. Oh, Maud is sharing her experience. You know, how much more did you get out of that compared to Tyrone's, which is like, what's the story?
I think that sometimes when Coronation Street does these interviews or has the actors going on This Morning or whatever, that can sometimes do a disservice, because it adds to the feeling that you're being preached at, you know, or even like in the days when back then we people believed that the characters were real people a lot more than they are now, because the actors themselves weren't so easily accessible. They weren't, you know, glamming themselves up for the awards shows. They weren't doing any of this. Like, Jim McDonald was Jim McDonald, and you couldn't just, you know, send a tweet to Charlie Lawson to see what he thinks about it. But now, because the stars are very much they're almost like the stars first and the character second, and I get the impression that back in the day they were the character first and then themselves second. It makes you be a little bit more cynical about it, or it's harder to believe or sympathise with them going through these horrible issues.
Well, you know, like, maybe this is part of the reason they do the issue stories. Like, we want to get Corrie on This Morning. How do we do it? Let's have somebody who's going through an issue story to get on there and talk. And here's the person who they spoke to, who went through this in real life, and here's the charity representative. You can't knock them for doing that, because that's like, that feels like the bare minimum. If you're going to get the plaudits and you want the kudos for doing a charity story, not a charity story, an issue story, you need to like back it up by doing something beyond just telling. But you're right, it does feel like here's our latest thing.
Well, and that all leads to then sympathy fatigue, doesn't it? Which I think we spoke about first last year when we were going through. Debbie's just had a dementia diagnosis. Kevin's got testicular cancer. Julie's got cancer at the same time. And if they go too overboard with it, you can just be like, I've only got so much. Now. Yeah, this is just a little bit ridiculous.
You're trying to take up too much of my emotional bandwidth with fictional characters.
Yeah.
And it's just getting really, really depressing. Like, we've spoken about raising awareness and making people feel seen and validated, but the other side of that coin is I don't want to see this on like, this is my opinion on cancer storylines. I don't want to see this on a soap that I watch to relax.
Escape from the harshness of reality.
Yeah, like, I'm going through this in my real life. I don't want to watch it happen on screen and re-trigger me and make me go to dark places and have negative emotions and remind
not even
myself
want to watch the show.
My experience. Not everybody reacts positively to seeing what they're going through reflected back to them.
No, and it can sometimes feel like Coronation Street is saying, well, tough to them, because some people
it is tough.
do like it, and we can't shy away from showing particular things just because it's going to upset people. We'll slap an advisory sticker on at the beginning, and then that'll have to
do consider it my problem, not anyone else's problem.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go, well, I would like them to not do cancer storylines anymore, because I don't think they do a very good job, and they've done so many of them. When you look at, like, the statistics, I think everyone on the street should have a cancer story at some point.
But even, like,
statistically speaking.
Going back to one of the first cancer storylines, if not the first, I don't remember, Alma, they did a bad job of that, didn't they?
Did they?
Because they had it rushed through really quickly, and people said that the character declined far quicker than she actually would, and it actually, for some people, scared people about how quickly
you would die.
Yeah, you from getting your diagnosis to your funeral.
I mean, an issues-based story is going to be serious to somebody, isn't it? Like, it's always something serious and something that negatively impacts your life. There's no issue of getting married. It's not an issue-based story. What's it like to get married? You know, it's really hard because you've got to book a date and stuff, and it's really complicated. Like, that's not an issue story. It's always something negative, like a disease or... like
it so often is diseases, isn't it?
It's really that
diseases or abuse.
Yeah, like
of some sort.
Yeah,
that's what an issue storyline is, or just something really miserable. Like the knife crime one. That was an interesting case because that was an issues storyline that I think a good number of people enjoyed more than I did, and I would say that. For a lot of that story, I was fairly ho-hum on it, but it did have a really strong ending, and then maybe gave me a little better feeling about it, just because of Mason's death and how affecting that was. But for the rest of it, it wasn't so great. But then that was good for lots of people, because that actually did really well for Corrie on TikTok, didn't it? Because
they love knife crime.
Well, because Charlie Renshaw came out of nowhere to having a really, large group of online TikToking teenagers who wanted to put their little clips and edits of him together, and then that was good for the show because it got a few more people watching that. So it all ties down to the fact that, and Corrie knows that, you can't please everyone with every story.
No, I just think that there needs to be a limit on what they expect us to care. Like, they need to, like, say to themselves, in a week, how many issues stories. It used to be what's you can listen to the evolution of it in our podcast, because it used to be like, what's the flavour of the month, what's the issues-based story of, like, these few months, and we would make fun of it, and then it became of the week, and then it became of the episode, and then it's multiple in one episode.
It can be sometimes,
and it feels very overwhelming and too much. It brings negativity, just without you can't have an issue-based story without some kind of negativity. So it brings that to the show that people don't want, and it brings this preachy element that people don't like, and it feels very false. And it doesn't feel like you're being told a story about real people and then, what's really happening to them. It feels like it feels manufactured and fake.
It feels like such an easy thing to draw from, though, doesn't it? And I can see why Corrie do it. They've been having to come up with storylines, different set of people for the past 65 years now.
Yeah.
So it's the temptation of, what about this disease?
But we
haven't done that disease.
You can also see, like, them going, right, let's do a story about online bullying. And then they say, yeah, okay, that adds a bit of drama, doesn't it? Because, Maria would say this and Gary would say that. And then you think, well, look, we've got a responsibility here to do this properly. We need to, like, really look into how do we portray this. And we've got to... talk to a charity and be responsible about it, and then it turns from, what's just an idea for a story into this big, like, baggage of expectations and limitations.
It was interesting what you were saying about what would Maria say about this and Gary would say about that, because I do sometimes feel that with some of these stories the characters will say whatever it is that they want to, the writers want them to say, because they're not necessarily true to character.
That's
and
what
I think
saying.
that this Debbie story at the moment is true to character, and Debbie is still being Debbie throughout the whole of it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about having something like an issue storyline feels like it's imposed upon a character. And I think the reason why it's so tempting to use medical things is because that's what happens in real life. Like, there is no reason that you get, most of the time, there's no reason you get cancer, or, there are obviously environmental and genetic, etc., but it doesn't arrive in your life because you did something, to cause it. It happens to you, right? So they can just generate these and go, this could happen to anybody. Like an affair storyline can only happen to somebody who's in a committed relationship with somebody, and it only means something if they're in a really strong relationship. So that has to be triggered by a character doing something or being in a certain way.
Yeah.
But a character just going, right, they're going to get Alzheimer's disease. You can do that to anybody, and that's why it feels sometimes so divorced from the character.
Yeah.
And why it's easy for them to just go, right, who's just spin the wheel, who's going to get this? That's what it feels like.
It is. It's the raffle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You've drawn a ticket that ends in a 5 or a 0, therefore you are going to get Crohn's disease this year. Sorry.
You're going to get the disease of the month.
Yeah. We were talking, this is not particularly a good segue on from what we were just talking about at all, but I was thinking about how characters react to different things, and like I said earlier, the Aidan storyline was a good one because it showed different characters reacting in different ways. But if you want to go back a long way, back into the era that you would say Corrie never had issues stories, you had the Gypsy storyline with the travellers community coming into Weatherfield and setting up on the Red Wreck or wherever they were, and that was a really good, and it was over in a week as well. But it was a really strong set of episodes to show different characters all reacting in different ways to having this community set up. And you had some people who thought it was awful and you needed to get rid of them. Some surprising ones like Ina Sharple saying, live and let live. And that was, would you say that was an issues story? Felt like it watching it, but maybe that was just because we're coloured by what the expectation of, is this one or not? And they probably didn't even think about it.
That's what I mean. It gives you, when you have a word for something, you have a lens to look at things in a different way. But it was I think that they had the freedom back then because back then the people that were going against the grain were Ina Sharples and Lucille, because they were like, I really like the Travellers, I think that we should let them do what they want and I feel sympathy for them. And that would have been probably not like a widely held belief. Whereas, and so they were freer to sort of like explore that. Whereas now I think Coronation Street is afraid of having characters say things that are quite bad to people find quite offensive. And I totally get. Yeah,
because you had your Les Battersby in the Hayley storyline, who was the perfect antagonist.
You wouldn't have that now. That's why we have some quite weak storylines that try to deal with discrimination, because you can't show it.
Well, even the fact that Carla's newfound love of Lisa, there's not been a single person that's even raise an eyebrow at that, is there?
And I completely get the reason for it, because it's the same as me with cancer. Like, if you live a life where you are discriminated against, why would you turn on a TV show to watch people being abused in the way that you get abused in real life? You wouldn't want that. But it is a weakness for the show because it can't convincingly do storylines where you can't show something negative happening. Yeah. It's a weakness.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the solution is, because you can't never do a story about it. You can't like really rile people up and upset them, it seems, because it's upsetting to people. I don't know, what do you do?
I don't know, because a worrying alternative, if they said, okay, we're going to reduce the amount of that sort of storyline, does it mean we're going to have more crime stories, we're going to have more police stories?
Well, they've got to have something, they've got to do something. It must just be...
Family kitchen sink drama is what we want. And there aren't very many storylines at all that are just day to day.
But the thing is about
or the gas pressure's gone too low. They could get a couple of episodes out of that in the 60s, but they would never do it now.
But you could do.
Yeah, you could.
The one thing that will never go away is the appetite to hear stories about people and each other. Human beings will never want to stop hearing stories about other humans and what they get up to. Like that's what we want. But it's a question of, have you got? I think that maybe that's why they introduce new characters all the time, because like maybe you've seen an affair story, but you haven't seen an affair story with this character before. No, because you just turned up, and I don't care now because I didn't know who they were last week.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I don't envy the team at Coronation Street.
No, not at all.
And I definitely do not blame them for wanting to do issue storylines, because, like I said, it's a trap. You want to do something relevant to people, but you've got to do it in a responsible way. But you've got to make a story out of it. That's such a difficult task to do, and I think that they fail at it quite a lot because of how impossible it is. And you're not just telling that story; you're telling 100 other stories in a year. How do you weave it together in a really convincing way? How much responsibility do you have to the people that you are telling the story of to get it right?
How can we keep it so that it doesn't feel like it just ends or goes away at the end? Like Craig's OCD story. Do you remember that?
That was really bad.
That was so clunkily done, and then he just stopped having it in the end.
I don't believe for a minute anyone goes into this sort of going, oh yeah, I'm going to hash it up. I don't care about this. You don't get to write a soap because you don't care about people. You only get to be in that team if you like have a keen interest in people. And how they live and what they think.
Yeah,
what
and
they
having
do.
spoken to numerous writers, we know that that's definitely the case.
Yeah, absolute respect for them for what they do, but it feels like it's such a huge machine that sometimes it doesn't translate when you earnestly believe, in what you're doing and you try to tell a story. It doesn't always work, and that's the same for any story, not just issues stories.
I think we're kind of getting to the end of this now.
It's a really difficult topic.
It's really, really difficult topic, and issue stories aren't going to go away. I don't think we've particularly solved it.
We never will, because you can't.
But I would say if we're going to keep some issue storylines, A, reduce them.
Yeah.
B, make us really, really care for the characters. C, make it something that is kind of not just contained within the four walls of one house quite so often, and then have some kind of long-term consequences, and be ready for that to happen, and don't just say, oh, I don't care how it's going to end. Almost plot out your ending before you start, and make sure you know that you're heading towards something narratively satisfying.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like the Will and Meghan story feels like an issues-based story done really well, because it's not just turned into Meghan goes to prison and everyone says that was bad of her, wasn't it? And that's the end of it.
It's something that's gripping.
It's evolved into something else. But then again, we sat here and went, oh wait, why do they turn Paul's M&D storyline into Bernie's shoplifting storyline or whatever she was doing? Why did they turn Debbie's story into Carl Webster having an affair with Abby,
and Debbie being in prison, which is another kind of swerve that I think lots of people wouldn't have appreciated.
We're sitting here going, oh, they turned Meghan's and Will's story into a story about the Driscolls versus Daniel versus Adam.
But I don't think that at the beginning that was right, everybody, we're going to do a really serious story about grooming here. Here's people talking on This Morning about the dangers of grooming.
Well, we don't know if they did
signs to look out for. Let's have Beth Nixon and...
I mean, yeah, sorry.
And so the drama, it was a bit more low key, so I didn't mind so much when that turned into another story. Similar to like the Institute story from a couple of years ago. Was that issue story? Maybe, I don't know. Warning you of the dangers of cult, but it was so low key issues that I didn't mind so much when it swerved into. I know the Toy of Cancer storyline was part of that, but I didn't mind as it got a bit more soapy and ridiculous, because I didn't feel like they'd originally said this is something important. Sometimes they can say it's important and then go all completely off base, like when they said that the Cassie and Ken storyline would be, all about companionship between the elderly, and it turned into him being poisoned. I think lots of people got really annoyed about that, but for me it didn't particularly bother me, because it barely even started being what they'd originally said it would be.
I mean, one of the things that we haven't mentioned is the Todd and Theo storyline running at the same time as Becky and Lisa. And lots of Swallow fans saying, actually, I think this should be an issue storyline about control and consent.
Yeah, that's a really good
coercion.
point.
And Coronation Street was like, no, this is not an issue storyline. This is just a fun.
This is a caper.
Yeah, exactly. And lots of people didn't
with
want it to
a
be
villain
like
to boo.
And it felt jarring to have two stories running at the same time that could have been the same issues storyline, but only one of them got the treatment of this is serious, we're gonna treat this like it's not fun, it's not, you're not supposed to be rooting for somebody, it's just a really tragic story. And then you've got Becky like dropping teaspoons and locking people in, like you know, the way that Becky treated Carla was far worse than anything Theo has done to Todd so far, because she could have died on several occasions because she was locked in a she was locked in a boot, she was locked in a cupboard, she was locked in a container overnight. Like, literally could have died with no food or water. We didn't know anything. There was no toilet. We didn't know anything about how she was treated. But we're just
kidney medicine.
That's just a funny joke. That's just a funny joke that happened. Don't worry about it. And then now they're cracking jokes about it. I can't see Todd and Theo cracking jokes about, oh, do you remember the kebab thing? I mean, I see Theo saying it to Todd, but I can't see Todd going, yeah, that was a laugh.
No, exactly. And then just that reminded me of the fact that when all of Carla's kidney problems, that was issues-ish, and that does leave lingering things that need to be considered, doesn't it? Like all of these characters who've got these long-term medical conditions or pills that they have to take for this, that or the other, that's just another thing to think about. It compounds later stories or doesn't get mentioned, and then you get nitpickers like us saying, how's Carlos even still alive here? I don't know. So overall then, just as a kind of final statement then, favourite issue stories or ones that you thought worked well? Like, if you had to think of some good issue stories, for me, I would put Jeff and Yasmin up there. That worked really well. Paul's MND for sure.
But none of this is unique or interesting to
say.
No,
not at all. The knife crime story, I think, was great. Bethany's grooming was another kind of shout out one from the Kate Oates era that worked well, didn't it? And that was a lot of it was down to the strong performances and the fact that it centered around the Platt family, who we cared an awful lot about. I guess it's ones that aren't to do with medical issues for me. Work.
Well, MND is medical.
No, you're right.
I'm actually going to say that I think Debbie's being done incredibly well, despite everybody saying get rid of it. I hate that story. Don't even do it.
Well, I think people just didn't want Sue Devaney to be leaving the programme, didn't they? But the story is being done particularly well, I would say, and that is down to the strength of the lead performer there. So you got to have that. You got to have strong lead performers. You got to have characters that you really care about, and it's got to be character first and not story first.
Yeah, I think that sometimes they try to use issues to make you care about the characters, and it doesn't work.
Sometimes it will work. Before the Seb storyline, they did an excellent job of really, really making us care for the Seb and Nina relationship over the course of about 2 weeks, so that it would have the intended emotional impact once he got his kick in. And Abby was already a really strong character as well that a lot of people cared about. But I think that was very lucky that worked quite so well as it did, because I think beforehand Seb had barely been on screen for the preceding 2 years, so you can't always rely on that happening, unfortunately. So that's kind of it.
Thank you for this.
No solutions, but lots to chat about, and hopefully some of what we've said has had some of you listening, nodding and going, yeah, I think that as well. And maybe some people thinking, no, don't be so ridiculous.
I do think.
Or what about this?
There's lots of different opinions on different things in Corrie, and we don't always have the same. Like in an argument, I think it's clear that so and so's right, and some people will be like, well, so and so, they're wrong. They're in the wrong because of this reason, and it doesn't occur to me because I don't have that same experience in life, etc., etc. Oh, who's your favourite character? I can't believe you prefer so and so over Thingamabob, etc. But when it comes to issue storylines, I think that people are universal in saying that a badly done one is obvious to everybody, and it really brings the show down.
Yeah,
I think it's the one thing that people really do all agree on. This story is a badly done issues story. It feels like we have consensus over these things, and it feels quite frustrating because it does seem like should be obvious. where the pitfalls are. But I guess it's how to avoid them is not obvious.
You're just sometimes not doing them. If you're going to say, let's do an issue story that runs over 2 weeks, or, you know, do you remember that environment storyline?
Yeah, but this is the thing, though. Like I was saying, like, what if you're going to do a story about the environment? You're like, yeah, I want to get it right. I want to really seriously consider the topic from these angles and make sure that I represent this point of view and make sure that people understand something when they come out of it feeling like they know more about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, just don't do it then. Is that the solution? No, not really.
But having Maria going around on her high horse telling people to stop parking on the street and stop idling.
It did just make it feel like caring about the environment makes you into a miserable old nag, which I don't think was the moral of the story.
No, but when they did it with Spider and Toya back in the late 90s, that was a bit more successful because it was about the adventures, I suppose, that Toya and Spider got up to, or when they were climbing up a tree with Auntie Emily.
Good old
yeah.
protesting. Tell you who is the absolute best at doing issues-based storylines that make you feel like at the end you learn something.
Who?
Brothers Grimm. Excellent, all of them.
What?
To tell a story, cautionary tale, at the end of it you learn something, but you were entertained along the way. Like, don't be putting shoes on when random men come to your house. That kind of thing.
Well, maybe Coronation Street needs to draw from traditional European fairy tales a little bit more often then.
Don't send your granddaughter into the woods because she'll get eaten by a witch or a wolf or something. Like, don't build your house out of straw, for God's sake.
Yeah.
All of these things.
I don't think Brothers Grimm can claim to be the authors behind all of the traditional tales, but
they collected them together, didn't they? So maybe Coronation Street should be more like curators.
3 Little Pigs.
I don't really care. I'm not like they should be the creators of stories. They need to go on Reddit and go to the best of Reddit updates and just steal stories off of that.
Yes.
Like modern day Brothers Grimm.
Should we end things there? That's been like over an hour talking about this particular question. So Lisa, I do hope that we've answered it somewhat to your liking, even though we have been just backing forth and circling the drain. There's no particular answer. But hey, we've talked about some of the stories that we enjoyed. That
we
are well
answered
done.
all the questions.
We've said about whether they're helpful.
They are actually helpful.
They can be, but not always.
Not always.
And we've said what makes a good one.
Yeah, I think we did a good job of like covering the bases here.
Well, there we go. That's all we come here to do, isn't it?
I noticed that when they do the YouGov poll, they never go, "Do you like issues-based storylines?"
No, they just describe them in a different way. What do you think of the MND storyline? And we've also come up with some ideas for a Corrie fan convention if you want something a bit lighter out of this episode.
Just trap people in the basement, apparently, is the best idea.
Trap them in the Rover's basement and give them...
And don't let them out till they give you £80 for an autograph.
There we go. Right, thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll be back later this week with our thoughts on Corrie of the Week. And of course, there's no Friday episode, so if you're really lucky, then you might just get it a bit earlier than normal. But that's a might. We haven't decided for sure yet. But maybe. See you next time, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.